latest episode of The Game Plan. I am your host, the authentic one, Mr. Matty and I, of course, am joined by the stats wizard, the man behind the metrics here at Player Profiler, Evan Ringler. Evan, what's up, my friend?
What's up, Maddie? Let's get it, baby. Happy to be here.
I mean, we are staring it down the barrel, week 12. These matchups are getting important. But for some, some of our teams are looking forward. We're looking for the playoffs. So we're looking at weeks 15, 16, 17. We're looking to win some dang championships. So for today, folks, we are here to help guide, start preparing for the playoffs. So we have some trade targets for playoff bound fantasy teams, and we also have some stats that you must know when getting ready to win your championships. And of course, this is the game plan. So we are here for all the fantasy managers out there. We don't care if this is your first year or your 20th year. We're here to help you get an edge on all your jabroni league mates, and we're already going to start planning for the fantasy football playoffs. So get out your pens, get out your pads, and let's start game planning to not only get them week 12 dubs, but them fantasy championships. All right, let's get into it. First, trade target for playoff bound teams. Evan, take it away.
I'm going with Justin Jefferson. First, let's talk about the playoff schedule. He gets at Dallas, who is the number 1 matchup for receivers, then at Giants, the number 4 matchup, and then home against the Detroit Lions, who are the number 13 matchup for wide receivers. I know it's been disappointing for Jefferson lately, particularly since McCarthy has taken over at quarterback. But over the last 4 weeks, the usage has still been pretty strong. 16 expected points per game, although he's only scored 12.5 real points per game on that usage. And if you look at the season-long metrics, they're awesome, as always. Jefferson is still incredible. He's only has 2 touchdowns this year, and I'm going to bet that changes. He's going to crush over the last 3 weeks that we need him to.
Justin Jefferson. That Dallas Cowboys week 1 of the playoffs is awfully enticing. Awfully enticing. So I like the call. It's not going to be easy to get Jefferson, but in redraft, I would say this is about the most gettable he has been over the last 3 years. So
Yeah.
What would you suggest, fantasy managers out there offer up to the Jetta owner to try to get him on their team?
That's an interesting question. Got to take a lot of stuff in. I wish I was prepared for that. I don't know. Maybe probably want to go cross positional. So, Bucky or no, not Bucky. We want him on our teams. Woody Marks, Aaron Jones. You're gonna have to add pluses. So maybe one of those types of running backs, plus a Pittman, Odunze, one of those types of receivers.
Devontae Smith. Yeah.
Sure.
No, I think the blueprint is there. I think that's doable. We're talking about 2 for sure, no doubt starters, but they could be based on your team. And if you are playoff bound, you did some things right. You've won some games. Maybe you do have a Roma Dunze. Like I have a team that I'm in third. I'm pretty sure I'm going to be a playoff team. I have Tet, Adunze, Egbuka, Addison, Marv, AJ Brown. You can have a surplus right now. So I think that's a good thing that you could dip into, go after Jetta. And the best thing about going for these type of players right now is if you are lucky enough, which not everyone will be, but if you are lucky enough that Jefferson is on the team that needs a week 12, week 13 win, you might be able to leverage a couple of good matchups, elevate some stock on a player, really just get out the desperation when it comes to a guy that was, who used a first-round pick on Jefferson. Now is probably the best time to get a guy who is a first-round pick in redraft. So I like the call.
Yeah, and
Justin Jefferson, get ready for battle, baby.
Yeah, while we say it'll probably take 2 starters, that's probably the case. There are people out there that are completely panicked on Justin Jefferson. You saw that I saw that Sunday and Monday on Twitter. There were some people with some outlandish comparisons, like they want to take Tedero McMillan rest of season over over Jefferson, or Zay Flowers or somebody like that. Alec Pierce, I believe I saw. Um, so you're probably not going to get anything that extreme. But if you could take a starter that people are excited about right now, Alec Pierce or Troy Franklin, and just add a small plus from the running back position, like Aaron Jones or something, you could actually get Jefferson in some cases. I'm not saying it's always going to be that cheap, but it's worth a shot.
Yeah, you could pry him away in a lot of redraft scenarios. And if you want to get into the weeds, see some trades that are happening throughout fantasy football involving Justin Jefferson or anybody else, get the Dynasty Deluxe over at playerprofiler.com because it comes with a little thing called the Trade Finder. So all these leagues that are inputted into the Player Profiler system, those trades pop up. You can kind of get a gauge for the market. My first trade target that I'd like to talk about for playoff-bound fantasy football teams is we'll start with Bucky Irving, but at this point, I am trying to buy all of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers running backs, depending on league size or roster sizes, of course. But yeah, I'll buy Tucker cheap, pick him up if you can. I'll grab Rachaad White if I have to leave the last guy off my bench in a redraft situation. But we're gonna talk about Bucky because Bucky would be the get. And he is gettable. He is coming back from injury, and sometimes it is tough to trade for the player once they come back. I mean, someone has been sitting on Bucky for weeks. It's hard to get them to sell it at this point, but everyone has their price, and Bucky, I think, has a very gettable price. And when we look at weeks 15, 16, 17, we look ahead to the fantasy football playoffs. They have the Buccaneers play Atlanta, which is the fourth most advantageous team for running backs. Carolina, which is 11th, and at Miami, which is the seventh most advantageous matchup for running backs. So there's a lot of soft matchups in the playoffs. And before injury, Bucky was doing Bucky Irving things. We look at some of the metrics, and again, only 4 games, but he was dominant. He was creating a ton of yards per touch. He was evasive. He was able to, juke opposing defenders like we all knew he can, and his skill set showed last year. And if you're worried about the split backfield, because he's going to probably split, probably with Sean Tucker, I'd guess, over Rachaad White. So I guess you'd go, for me, Bucky, Tucker, White. I want to bring this up. Last year in the fantasy football playoffs, week 15, 16, 17, Bucky Irving had a 43% snap share, running back 18 that week. That goes up to 56%, but still not over 60%. Running back 16. Following week, fantasy championship, another 57% snap share. Running back 5. That's a whole chunk of opportunities that can go Tucker's way, can go Rachaad White's way, and we can still get a lot of production out of Bucky Irving. So buy Bucky Irving, get him on your playoff squads. Do it before he officially gets back on the gridiron. Where I think you could start, where you could probably get a guy like Bucky Irving in redraft, is you allow someone to tier down at running back and give him someone that they could put in their flex. So Kenneth Walker's coming off a big week. R.J. Harvey has a lot of opportunities coming his way. You can sell one of those backs plus a guy like maybe like a Khalil Shakir, Xavier Worthy. These guys that are probably your fringe flex plays if you are a playoff-bound team and are that good. But you can move those 2 assets for a guy like Bucky Irving, get 2 starters for what has been 0 for that team. Sit back, relax, and let him get ready to watch him do some Bucky Irving things in the fantasy football playoffs.
Yeah, we'll see if Bucky ends up playing this week. I think for the sake of this exercise, it would actually be good if he didn't play. That
I agree. I do
further
agree with that,
incentivize the manager that has him to sell him. A lot of the Bucky teams out there they really need to win this week. They can't afford to wait another week. So I think this is a phenomenal trade target, phenomenal schedule. I think the split will be very interesting to see between Bucky, White, and Tucker. I would assume that they probably get all 3 of them involved, but Bucky would just have such a lead over the other 2. I would guess it's like 60-20-20, where Tucker's like a change of pace guy, and then Rachaad White is like some third downs, but not all the third downs. And we know that Bucky Irving is the best running back in that room, so I'm not super worried about it. Great schedule, great call by Matty.
All right, Evan, let's hear your next trade target for playoff bound fantasy teams.
I'm going with Ricky Pearsall. I think that right now he should be pretty easy to trade for in
Mm-hmm.
redraft leagues. He's got a bye week in week 14, and he's still ramping up to speed. He didn't do a whole lot in his first game back. So your trade partner, he's probably not starting him this week. He is open to moving him. The playoff schedule, they get Tennessee, the number 15 matchup for receivers, at Indianapolis in a dome. That's the sixth best matchup. And then home against Chicago, the eighth best matchup. Uh, bad weather is very unlikely in those games, which we definitely want to
Huge.
keep in mind for the receivers this time of year. And this 49ers offense has tremendous upside down the stretch, in my opinion. Horrible defense. Over the last 4 weeks, it's worse than the Cowboys' defense. They're going to have to score points to win games. And Brock Purdy has been genuinely awesome this year when he's played.
Mm-hmm.
He's fourth in EPA per play and sixth in completion percentage over expected. I think that this offense could go to the moon over the last third of the season or so. And we have seen these flashes of greatness from Ricky Pearsall. He had a hot start to end or a hot end of last season and then a hot start to this season. In Ricky's 3 healthy games earlier this year, he topped 100 yards twice, and he currently ranks top 20 among receivers in both first downs per route run and yards per route run, 2 of the stickiest metrics that we have.
And another thing about this offense, too, I mean, Purdy, Kittle, connection, it's obviously there. CMC getting all the touches. He's been phenomenal. But from from a wide receiver standpoint, we saw Kendrick Bourne rise to the occasion for 2 games. We've seen Juwan Jennings pretty much struggle all year long, health or otherwise. There is a runway for some receiver to have massive games as Brock Purdy's go-to target. And with the schedule there, go for a guy like Ricky Pearsall. And the reason why I love Ricky Pearsall as a current buy for a playoff team, again, if you're able to leverage a win now mentality, if the opposing fantasy team, fantasy manager needs points, you could have like a Michael Wilson at your expense.
Perfect.
Ranked number 24 this week in the Player Profiler weekly rankings at receiver. Wan'Dale Robinson, Alec Pierce, as you've mentioned. There are a bunch of guys who are ranked high, projected to score a lot this week. Darnell Mooney. These guys are essentially bottom of your roster players if you're a playoff team that might have value, because I'm looking at Ricky Pearsall this week. We have him ranked at playerprofile.com at 32. So if someone's trying to win now, we're like, oh, what do you mean I'm lowballing you? I'm trying to get you Darnell Mooney, who's ranked higher. I'm trying to get you Michael Wilson, who's ranked higher. Wan'Dale Robinson, who's ranked higher, plus whatever tips the scales.
Right. Yeah.
Gettable player, big-time upside, and I don't think you're at a price right now that you're putting yourself at risk. You're not diminishing your starting lineup to the point where Ricky Pearsall has to come through. He's a luxury you could buy into now and hopefully reap the benefits in the playoffs. That's a move that I think everyone should be looking to make if they are playoff bound. And if you have the luxury of seeing your path to the playoffs already in Week 12, and so many of our, 8-3 teams, even 7-4 teams might look great right now. So good target. The next guy that I'm going to talk about here is not a sexy player, damn near hated player, at definitely a hated position. But for me, if you have been streaming this position, or if you have just been reluctantly hoping, wishing, praying that Kyle Pitts became into a weekly option or someone of that guild, get Mark Andrews right now. Mark Andrews for the fantasy football playoffs at Cincinnati, best matchup for tight ends. Home against New England, 10th best matchup for tight ends. And at Green Bay, which is a middle-of-the-road 16th matchup. And unlike the indoors nature that we liked when we're talking about the receiver, these games are not indoors. They could get messy, which could be good for a guy like Mark Andrews. Matter of fact, it would be great for a guy like Mark Andrews in this offense. If it's a little bit cold, maybe a little snow. A game that comes to mind, Evan, if you can walk with me down memory lane. Remember that Bears-Bills game? I think it was the first round of the fantasy playoffs. It was a Week 15 game a couple years ago where it was the conditions were horrific and it neutralized everybody but
Right.
Josh Allen and Dawson Knox. The tight end is the position at the pass catching point that can help win games. And then Mark Andrews, on top of all that, again, hasn't looked pretty, but he is getting thrown to enough. And more importantly, he is getting thrown to when it matters most. Ninth most red zone targets. He's got the fifth highest red zone target share amongst tight ends. So, yeah, it's taking tight ends. Yeah, touchdowns. It is taking a 35-yard rushing touchdown last week. But at tight end, you'll take it. You'll take those types of possibilities. And then we go back memory again just to last year, though, Evan. Starting in week 12, which is this week, Mark Andrews, tight end 8, tight end 5, 9, 8, 8, 7. Pretty good to
Yeah.
finish off the season. And we're already seeing that trend playing out again for Mark Andrews. And again, when we're talking about Andrews, what we could buy, you could theoretically get Mark Andrews and using pretty much any standard trade market analyzer. You can move a flex player. It's someone, a Mark Andrews owner is not going to be holding on with dear life, whether it be dynasty or redraft. So if you have a Wan'Dale Robinson, you have a Ramondre Stevenson, and they're in your flex, and you can put in someone else or stream the position, get Mark Andrews. Then you have a tight end that you could just put in your lineup, not worry about, and just. I think at this point we're going to be cashing in our Mark Andrews, and he'll be a fantasy hero once again.
I love it. I love it. Especially if that other team has another tight end that they like, and they're
Which is
like,
possible. Yeah,
yeah, it's
absolutely.
very possible. Maybe they're not
Yeah.
even playing Mark Andrews
They
every
picked
week.
up Gadsden. There's
Right.
all these scenarios this year where tight ends came out of effing nowhere.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that this is really a perfect run out for Mark Andrews because the Ravens defense sucks this year and they really need to win like every game they have left.
Every
So
game.
this offense better be scoring 30 points a game or it's going to be ugly in Baltimore. We know that Mark Andrews is reliant on touchdowns. That's, usually thought of as a bad thing. But when you're in a great offense, I don't really think it matters all that much. And if you look at his like fantasy points per game versus his expected fantasy points, they're very close together because he is getting these targets in the end zone. And he's converting on them. And this has been a consistent thing throughout his career with Lamar Jackson, especially is that they really have a connection in the red zone. So I think this is a great call out of you again.
I also think he is a sneaky buy in Dynasty. He's only 30.
Mm-hmm.
Even if he's cut or traded away from the Ravens, he's going to go to a team and be able to give some quality, 30 31, 32, 33 seasons. I think he's got that in him. And at this point, sometimes these tight ends, they come out of nowhere. Believe it or not, he's trending upwards. He's already at tight end 14 overall. But by the end of the year, I think we're looking again at another top 10 season for Mark Andrews.
Yeah, the dynasty tight end rankings are in a weird place right now where I think you have like a clear top 13 or so. And then there's just a big group of guys where it's like, I actually have Mark Andrews all the way up to tight end 15 in dynasty. That's a 30-year-old, but it's just such a big jumble of guys with like Mason Taylor, Theo Johnson, Brenton Strange,
Yeah, you
Travis
go on
Kelce, of
age.
course.
Makes sense.
Yeah, but Mark Andrews is the win now version of those guys. So definitely a solid buy in dynasty. I agree with you there.
All right. Do you have any more trade targets?
Off the top of the head, let's see. One buy high that I like right now is Trevion Henderson. I think that he's just going to explode, can continue to explode. He already has. But even when Ramondre comes back, I just absolutely love Henderson's outlook. He has an incredible schedule looking forward. And then besides that, I like buying Jalen Waddle. That was one I was thinking of bringing up. Again, awesome schedule. He's got a bye week coming up. He's coming off of a pretty mediocre game against the Commanders, which people were expecting him to do really well. So I think both of those guys are interesting buys right now.
I was doing the research for the show, and I was looking at the quarterbacks. I couldn't really find a guy. Maybe Jalen Hurts. if you're looking, but I think you're just going to go to bat with your stud quarterback that's got you there. You're not going to worry about schedule. And if
Yeah.
you're wishy-washy, there are some good streaming options, which maybe in a future episode we'll talk a little bit about some playoff streaming options to get ahead of your league mates, guys. You could stash for that in that regard. Maybe we'll talk about that for tight end, for quarterback. But I do have one more. This isn't for everybody. I know there's a lot of snooty fantasy managers out there that have done away with all the dinosaur leagues. No kickers, no defense. No. But for all my old school gamers, people like me that have been around here for years, that still play with DSTs and with kickers, the Houston Texans are the sneakiest buy right now for playoff-bound teams. They're welcoming the Bills on Thursday night. Not a good matchup. If you use Sleeper, you see the big red. Oh, no. Josh Allen, no. I don't care. You could have the number 2 or 3 defense. It doesn't matter. I know Houston's is number 1. So the fantasy manager is going to go, what? They're the best defense. I don't want to trade it. But most people don't really give a shit. Let's be honest. No one really cares about their D. But if you buy them, if you get the Texans defense in the fantasy playoffs, home against the Cardinals, home against the Raiders, at the Chargers. At Chargers could be tough in fantasy championship, but they're all green matchups. They're all good matchups for defenses, and having those two mediocre offenses and kind of iffy at best offensive lines at home, that pass rush, boom, 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 boom. And this is the type of trade that your league mates crush you in the chat on. But don't worry, because you could flip them all 5s when you win it and take home the gold at the end of the year. So I think we've kind of talked about a bunch of trade targets. And what I am noticing here, Evan, is there's a lot of questions in the chat building up. And, of course, the game plan is here for each and every one of you guys, all the managers. So we will get to every single one of those questions at the end of the show. So you're going to want to stick around. But before we get into the questions, before we get into the chat, we are going to talk about some stats that all fantasy managers must know for the home stretch.
I know you're sad draft season is over, but just because the NFL season starts doesn't mean the drafting stops. Because Fast Draft has the Flex 6 Frenzy. You're drafting 6 guys for the Sunday slate. It's fast, it's furious, it's fun. And as with everything on Fast Draft, there are no salaries. Woo! So go to draftfaster.com, get the app, use your host promo code for a $50 deposit match. Now let's go start drafting faster.
Matty Kiwoom, Evan Ringler, we are talking about some stats that you must know for the home stretch. This could be underlying metrics, warning signs, maybe overcorrections, potential matchups down the stretch. Whatever it is, these are the stats that you have to know. So, Evan, what's stat number 1?
Yeah, man, it's tough to narrow it down. We could do a whole show on these, man. We could just go for hours, I swear.
Yeah, we could.
But my first one is the Los Angeles Chargers over the last 4 weeks rank 31st in the NFL in running back usage. And then a little bonus to go along with that, they have the 21st strength of schedule, which is below average. Also have a bye week coming up. This stat made me real scared about Omarion Hampton. When he does come back, I'm gonna be keeping my expectations low. If he's just like the running back 20 for a few weeks, that would honestly be a win, given just how bad the situation is right now.
So if you have him on your team, redraft, he's been on your IR spot, you've been able to stash him. Are you looking to move on? Would you move him in a 1-for-1 for Bucky Irving?
Yes. Yeah. No question. Not even close.
So Omarion Hampton. Ooh, let me ask you this though: if you are a certified contender in Dynasty, would you sell Omarion Hampton? Obviously, you're getting a ton. Is it that dire?
Oh, I wouldn't sell him for Bucky. No.
Okay.
On Dynasty.
Any running back in Dynasty? Like, let's say you can get Christian McCaffrey.
I would certainly think about that one. You're
okay.
Obviously losing Dynasty value,
Big
but
time.
Who cares if you win a freaking chip, man? I think that's realistic. I would do that in the right situation.
Okay, so I think that has to be said because there are a lot of contending rosters in all formats that are looking at him, Hampton as potential savior, reinforcement, and if he's not going to provide that the way we probably would have expected, you're better to move on, especially in redraft where you don't have to worry about the future. Dynasty, it gets a bit little more hairy. It's a little more hairy.
Yeah, I'm not really worried about his like 2026 and beyond.
Right.
It's all about the tackles, man. Their offense
Those guys are studs, yeah.
was built around 2 stud tackles, and they've
Right.
lost both of them for the whole year, and it's crippled their entire offense. All they can really do now is just throw the quick game to Ladd and Keenan and Gadsden. They can't really run the ball. They can't really throw it deep to QJ. So that's kind of what we're looking at.
Yeah. I just need them to have some semblance of an offensive line for that first round of the playoffs against Dallas. Don't look like the Raiders against Dallas. Look like everybody else, please. Please. The stat that I'm going to bring up here that everyone needs to know for the home stretch is target share, which sounds basic because it is. It's not all that detailed. But the reason why I think now's the most important time for us as managers to do a little bit of a deep dive into target shares is because trade deadlines, all these things they're approaching. Some of mine are this week. You try to make trades now.
Mm-hmm.
So you're trying to predict who can help you, not this week or next week, but who could help you 3 weeks from now? Who could be that guy in week 15? And it's not always just schedule. And to me, target share is a sticky predictor. The guys who get thrown the ball a ton, whether they're converting or not, as long as they're getting the opportunities to catch footballs, they can convert and have an overcorrection in terms of how many they catch in a given game, how often they get peppered. Obviously, with more chances come more opportunities to score fantasy points. It's easy to see. So what I'm looking to do is I'm scouring the market. I'm looking at target shares, and I'm looking for elevated ones in comparison to their market in redraft. And here's some names that pop out, people. Chris Olave has a 29% target share. Had a pretty good game before the bye, but most trade market indicators would suggest he's gettable. People aren't thinking about him as a guy who's earned 30% target share. So he's a guy I'm targeting. A.J. Brown seems to be in the news every single week. He's pissed off. He doesn't want to be there. The schedule's pretty good, and he's got a 27% target share. The guy just had 11 targets. The overcorrection is coming. It might not come every single week, but as long as it comes in the playoffs, that's what we're trying to cash in on. And he's absolutely possible to add, in especially redraft dynasty. Doesn't matter. His price is down right now, so you're not even taking on the risk of what you'd have to give up like you would in the past. And the last name is Deebo Samuel. Going into a bye, no Jaden Daniels probably for the rest of the year, but he's got a 26% snap share. He's getting the ball a ton. He's scoring fantasy points. And you could get Deebo Samuel, feels like, for almost nothing. 3rd round pick in Dynasty. A bench running back in redraft. He's going to improve your flex spot, and you're not going to realize how much until you get him in there. 26% target share is nothing to nothing to scoff at. And you could do this with running backs. You could do this with tight ends. But this target share, we want the guys that have earned the targets, the guys who have done it for their quarterback, for their head coach, 11 weeks of the season, 10 weeks if they've already had their bye. That's something we can sink our teeth into. That's something we can potentially rely on because we're trying to predict the future, right? We can't fully know what's going to happen. But if we could find a certain pillars to chase, I think you could kind of set yourself up for a good playoff run.
I love it. I was thinking about talking some Chris Olave or A.J. Brown as my trade targets. Didn't quite get there because of some situation stuff. I think the most interesting one, though, is Deebo Samuel. He is having the quietest wide receiver 15 season of all time. Nobody's talking about him at all. I haven't seen a single mention of Deebo Samuel this entire season, I don't think. And he is averaging 14.1 points per game. That is the 15th best among wide receivers this year. It's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, and he's doing it with Mariota. So we're not worried about the fall off with no Jaden. There's no running back. I mean, Bill, I don't think Bill's good. I think the hype on Ja'Cory Cross-Merritt has completely fallen flat on its face. Chris Rodriguez has been the hottest hand in that backfield. So why not be Debo rest of season? So Debo, again, looking for some of these stats to do some deep dives. You uncover some gems like a Debo Samuel. Evan, what's the next stat that people need to know about? I don't know why my brain shut off kind of right there.
Yeah, and you can see more of these stats for yourself for free on the player pages at playerprofiler.com. A couple that popped up to me while just looking at Debo's page: first in design targets and first in design target share. So they're getting them the ball however they can. They're really running their offense through Debo. But my second stat I want to talk about is about the Arizona Cardinals. The Arizona Cardinals currently rank second in plays per game and third in dropback rate over the course of the whole season. And when you just isolate their games with Jacoby Brissett, that even goes a little bit higher. So they're just throwing the ball a ton, like more than any other team since Jacoby's gotten in there, especially. And my takeaway from this is that as long as Marvin Harrison Jr. is out, Michael Wilson is going to keep smashing, keep getting a ton of volume. And then when Harrison comes back, he's going to smash and start getting a ton of volume.
Could they both smash?
I think it's up in the air potentially. It's kind of interesting because they're both like outside guys. It seems like. What I hope they do is just work Marvin the slot a little more.
Yeah, like find a way. I saw someone tweet this. I wish I knew who it was. I'd give him credit. Could Michael Wilson be the wide receiver version of Rico Dowdle? Like he just nah, he's done. Get rid of him. He's flipping the pan, and all of a sudden 3 weeks, like, do you realize he's average 18 points? I know it's gonna be heavily weighed from the 40 burger, but then he sprinkles in a 14, a 12, and a 15. You're like, he's been pretty good. Caught a touchdown here, deep pass. He had 10 targets the week before with Marv on the field. Didn't convert all of them, but I don't think I don't think we see the days of double 20 or so fantasy points for Michael Wilson when Harrison returns. But could he get a deep ball? 4 for 90 and a touch? Yeah, I think that's possible. So I'm glad to hear that the Cardinals' offense can thrive with Jacoby Brissett the way they couldn't
let's not talk about
Kyler
the
Murray.
other guy. Yeah, let's not talk about the other guy.
The bad man's not coming back.
We're having a good time right now.
He's happy.
Jacoby Brissett, just the perfect backup quarterback where he's not – you're never going to want him to be your starter, but when he is, you're having a good time and your fantasy dudes are going off, and it's awesome.
Yeah, we're seeing the Cardinals' offense look how it could look with a quarterback that fits the scheme.
Right.
I'm putting you on the spot here. Where does Kyler Murray play football in 2026?
Ooh, man, I can't stop thinking about a Tua for Kyler swap. I don't think it's actually going to happen. It's completely preposterous, but it would be really funny. I don't know. Let's see. Who needs a quarterback? Cleveland. I don't see that. Tennessee. I don't see that. Minnesota, potentially. I don't see that. Who am I forgetting?
Raiders.
Oh, the Jets. The Jets would do it.
Jets.
That fits. The Jets
would do it.
Yeah.
Jets would do it. They don't go quarterback with either of their first 2 picks. They get Kyler Murray instead.
That makes sense.
That seems that makes sense. I like that.
I would expect him to start somewhere next year, but I guess going through the teams, it's not 100%.
Yeah, it's just I don't know how they're gonna do it in Arizona, but I think they're all saying in the front office that he can't be our quarterback next year.
Yeah, we'll see. It'll be a super interesting offseason for quarterbacks. There's going to be so much shuffling and so much drama.
And I think that the market will be there because there's potential that we only get 2 first-round quarterbacks.
Yeah.
Dante Moore, Lenore Sellers, John Mateer. If those guys go back to college, which sounds like they might, all of a sudden we're looking at NFL teams looking at the veteran class a little bit more closely than they might have thought when they thought they could get a quarterback. I like how we went about this, first and foremost. How stats, we left it vague because it ended up being kind of cool to see how we went about this. You kind of went, matchups, team centric, using what we know about the teams and hoping to cash in for the rest of the fantasy season. I kind of went. I love the metrics that you've created at Player Profile, so I dove into those. And the next stat to know is fantasy points per opportunity. Why does this matter for running backs? Because right now, if you are a contender, you're heading towards the playoffs, and you have a deep bench. There are some redraft leagues with deep benches. They're not all 3-bench, they're all office leagues. Backload your bench with players that can score fantasy points without a ton of touches, because maybe we have the running back version of Laporta situation happen right before the playoffs. You're relying on running back X. I won't say a name and put bad juju out there, but you're relying on running back X. He gets put on the IR on a Tuesday. Your trade deadline's passed. The waiver run, they're dry. It's week 15, ain't nothing out there. So you need to have guys on your bench that you could slide in, and they have a puncher's chance at a spike week when you need it most. Some names that come to mind: Tajay Spears, Isaiah Davis, and the gold standard of this player, Tyler Algier. If Tyler Algier is a free agent, if Tyler Algier is not on the Bijan team, go subtly buy Tyler Algier, because these guys are scoring fantasy points at a pretty high rate. They don't need a ton of touches. And if something happens where they get more touches, we could see an explosion. Or, Tyler Algier gets 2 rushing touchdowns from inside the 10. 12 fantasy points. That's it. No rushing yards. You'll take that in a pinch. You'll take that when there's nothing else. So it's just super important to make sure that on your roster you have emergency players, guys that can get you out of a pickle, because especially in redraft, the trade deadlines, they're coming fast if they're not here already. So at this point, you might not have a chance to really dig yourself out of an injury hole. Get a guy like Algier, get a guy like Davis, get a guy like Tajay Spears before the eruption happens. Put him on your bench and deploy if emergency is necessary.
Yep. I think it's always smart to use your bench spots to prioritize upside. That's really all you're looking for. Sure, you might want one like floor receiver, like I don't know, if you have Khalil Shakir or something. That's something just in case. But I think those guys are more useful like during the bye weeks. And when we get to this time of the season, we don't see as many bye weeks. So we want to be using those bench spots for way more upside than that.
Absolutely. Yeah, I had a thought there because I'm trying to think of some of my teams and what I usually have on my bench. And yeah, at this time of year, it's probably 1, maybe 2 receiver if I have some buys. It's a couple of defenses. It's a couple of kickers, maybe a backup quarterback. It's you're really trying to protect yourself from the dredges of the playoffs and redraft. So yeah, you don't need too many floor play receivers. You need these spike running backs. Evan, what's the next stat people need to know?
Yeah, like for example, one of my redraft benches right now, I just pulled it up, is pretty crazy. Tyler Algier, Ray Davis, Isaiah Davis, Brian Robinson, Emmanuel Wilson. So just 5 super upside running backs.
Yep.
And then Purdy, who I'll probably drop this week, or I'll probably drop the other quarterback this week, and Troy Franklin, who's kind of that wide receiver you can slide in there if you need to.
Yep. You need one. You need one. Or a mascot. I have DJ Moore in the team. He's like my favorite player in the NFL. I just want to have enough good players, so I don't have to play DJ Moore, but he can just hopefully get a ring at the end of the year with the boys.
Yes, sir. All right, my third stat is player-focused, actually. Patrick Mahomes. He has the worst strength of schedule for any fantasy quarterback. Like strength of schedule remaining. This is weighting towards the playoffs. We actually weight those weeks at Player Profiler 4 times as much as the standard regular season game. The worst strength of schedule for any fantasy quarterback. And then he's also been a little cold recently. 2 straight games below 15 fantasy points and combined for 8 rushing yards in those 2 games. I'm just worried. I'm a little worried that Patrick Mahomes might not actually be the elite quarterback 1 that we saw over the first 2 months of the year. He might be moving more towards what we saw over the last 2 years instead.
I think in redraft too, you just have to separate what he's done and really focus on what he's going to do. And because of what he's done, you can move him for a ton of different quarterbacks. And one that comes to mind, you're talking about remaining strength of schedule. Lamar Jackson's is 4th best amongst quarterbacks. Is that a move you can make? Jalen Hurts is 11th. That's a move I think you can certainly make. Or if you want to get cute, you could do some other things too. But certainly you can, use the points of these and just get away. Just get away from the possibility, because we've come to kind of see a lot of mediocrity of Mahomes in fantasy, not in real life, in fantasy. So I think it's a bold call. It's a good call. You gotta know when to hit the eject button in redraft, and you gotta know when to be crafty. And I was gonna say that, but I don't want to just sing the song. Glad you did. It needed to be said. The last stat you need to know is actually a stat that you don't see at playerprofiler.com. I've created it myself, Evan. I've decided to become a stats whiz myself.
Let's go.
But full disclosure, I just use 2 stats that you've created, and it just gives me a picture that I like to call the regression rating, which is just it's looking for guys who expected stats are higher than their fantasy points per game. So expected fantasy points per game is just higher than fantasy points per game, and in hopes that looking at some other underlying metrics, I can pinpoint players that are hoping to have some big games ahead. And some guys, 2 players, matter of fact, that really popped when I went through this is Alvin Kamara. Alvin Kamara is expected to score 2.45 points more per game than he is, and has a ridiculous rest of season schedule.
Yes, he does.
Got a ton of touches before the bye. Now coming out of the bye, Alvin Kamara is hopefully in line for some big games. You don't need him to be good for a long stretch, but the rest of season, Alvin Kamara's schedule looks great. And at this point, I'm hoping for some positive regression to the mean. And the other guy that I want to bring up when looking at this is Brian Thomas. Brian Thomas at this point, his price in redraft has gotten so low that the risk that you were weighing weeks prior, we talked about his panic meter a couple weeks ago. The what was built into that was his price to buy. If you were going to acquire a Brian Thomas, or if you had used a first, second round pick on Brian Thomas, that is no longer the reality, right? What you can get Brian Thomas, how you can get Brian Thomas in redraft has just become a lot easier. And again, looking at how he has been expected to score 3.7 more fantasy points per game. I know that doesn't sound like a lot, people, but Evan, let the people know how many more fantasy points, 3.7 fantasy points extra a game could take you from where to where in terms of the season stats.
I mean, that could take you from like wide receiver 40 to wide receiver 15 or something like that. Every year we see this massive,
it's huge.
Yeah, especially at the wide receiver position. There's always this massive group between like 10 to 15 points per game of 30 to 40 receivers. But I think the Kamara call out is very astute, and I'll give you another gross veteran buy at the moment, which is Aaron Jones. Both guys have been getting great volume, and while their offenses are not looking good at the moment, they have great schedules. So I actually bought both of them recently in a dynasty league where I kind of went all in. So yeah, great call outs there for sure.
Yeah, this is the difference of winning championships and having to pay your buddy some beer money for losing. Is getting the guys like this, the guys that aren't always the prettiest, the Mark Andrews, the Alvin Kamara's, the Aaron Joneses, the Brian Thomas, who's been a letdown. Get these guys, and that's how you can get an edge.
Yeah, and I'll say that it totally depends on your league and your situation. In a lot of like 10-team redraft leagues, Alvin Kamara, he's just not going to be in your starting lineup if you're winning the championship.
Right.
But if you're playing in a 12-team start 11 dynasty league, then Kamara's definitely going to be in your lineup. So, you got to weigh stuff like that. In the more shallow redraft leagues, the Brian Thomas buy for a super cheap price, that one is much more intriguing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I was able to buy AJ Brown in a pretty deep. It's a 12-team redraft league with pretty deep benches. So I mean, I would say fairly deep. Like I said, middle of the road or whatever. I was able to get AJ Brown from Kamani Vidal. So
jeez,
these prices can crater, And Kimani Vidal has been the clear-cut better player. My team would have been better had I started Kimani Vidal over the stretch before injury of this past week. But over AJ Brown. AJ Brown hadn't really done squat since I've acquired him. So you can win a trade in terms of the value, but also lose in terms of the short-term points if you can withstand something like that. And then redraft, that's absolutely things that are always on the table. So everyone, that is it. That is the episode of the game plan, but stick around because we're going to talk to the chat. We're going to answer some questions, lineup questions, trade questions. All that is happening now, and it might not be about your team, but maybe the thought, maybe our analysis will spark something, will help you, or maybe you do have this guy on your team or a decision like this to make, and it does help you out. So if you want to stick around, we're going to get into the chat. So let's get it popping. Chucka, baby. It's Chucka. It's Chuka. You think it's Chuka or Chucka?
I'm going to say Chuka.
It's Chuka, baby. I have Dak Prescott and Patrick Mahomes in Superflex. Not sure about their playoff games. I also have 3 defenses in that league, Browns, Chiefs, and Eagles. Thoughts? I think we kind of talked about Mahomes, what to do there. So talk about Dak, and then I'd say get rid of all of these and just get yourself one for the media, one defense for right now, and then the Texans defense for the playoffs.
Yeah, I'm not concerned about Dak's playoff schedule. He does have Minnesota in week 15, which is not ideal, but then he goes to the Chargers and Commanders, which are pretty weak defenses. And it looks like probably no weather in any of those games, if I had to guess, except for at Washington. I guess you could, but probably not. So yeah, I'm not really concerned about Dak. Mahomes, we just said we're probably looking to tear down to a different elite quarterback. And then the defenses of those 3, I think that the Eagles would be my pick to keep their playoff schedule. They have Vegas and then Washington, but week 17 they have the Bills. So you won't want to play them against the Bills. But you can't hold them for 15 and 16 if you cannot get the Houston Texans like you mentioned.
Yeah, I think you only need to have 2 defenses. Just find the matchup if you can, correlate it. And 3, I feel like you could get a high upside running back like we talked about instead of having 3. 2's fine. 2 okay. I'm okay with that as you get ready for the playoffs. PPR, favorite to take down the league this year. Do I ride Tet out for the rest of the year? Or do I deal him and Algier for Waddle? Tet or Ooh, no, this is pretty easily Tet and Algier, right?
Are we sure about that?
Talk to me, baby. Talk to me.
I don't know. I'm really high on Waddle, I guess. I currently have him up to wide receiver 11 in the seasonal ranks. I just absolutely love him. I know we just saw a massive blow-up game from Tet, but I still don't trust Bryce Young to get him the football reliably. Let's see. The schedules are pretty similar, although Waddle does have an awesome schedule, and Tet's is just pretty good. So with Waddle's usage, both guys get really, really good usage, but I trust Tua to get the football to Waddle more than I trust Bryce to get the football to Tet, and he's also got the better matchup. I know Algier is a good handcuff, but just for me, I prefer Waddle by a significant enough margin. So give me that.
This has to be redraft, right? Obviously, there's got to be a redraft take, but in redraft, make the move. Get Waddle. Now's the time to buy. Go. His bye week's this week. Get that in the rear view, and he's been great without Tyreek Hill. I know last game wasn't great, but
I will say
that was weird in Madrid.
Do we need to give up Algier like 1 for 1? What do you think the market would say? Because Waddle's coming off a disappointing game. Tet just had a blow-up game.
Right. I would guess that Tet McMillan could get you Waddle and the Algier. That's what I would guess.
Do some negotiating. See what you can do.
Yeah, but let's just take it as face value. Let's give him the benefit of the doubt that he's done the negotiation. Yeah. This is the deal. Even if this is the deal, I'll make it. You get the extra roster spot. Go pick someone up in waivers. Something like that. Xavier Worthy or Ken Walker? This is a dynasty rebuild team.
So the asset that you would look at and say that makes more sense on a rebuilder is Xavier Worthy. However, I'm going with Walker because I am at this point. I just kind of think Xavier Worthy's not good. What do you think?
I'm gonna. This might sound surprising. I am gonna go Ken Walker as well, and because there's no way Seattle pays him this offseason with Charbonnet there with their needs
I sure
elsewhere
hope
to
so.
serve. So if he goes, and I think he's good enough to get a good contract, to get money
Yeah,
that says you're
he's
our
awesome.
guy. So if he goes to a good situation, pie in the sky, it's going to be a huge thing in this offseason. But let's say Javonte goes out there, finds a different job. Maybe the Cowboys bring in a Ken Walker. Maybe the Chiefs bring in a Ken Walker to help them out. So there's great landing spots out there. I think he's still wildly talented. And I think this time next year, we have a way higher likelihood of be talking about Ken Walker being a top 12 player in his position than we will Xavier Worthy. And I don't like projecting 2-3 years out in Dynasty. So I'm going to go with Ken Walker. I'm going to take Ken Walker and hope that he finds a better situation in the offseason because we know the Worthy situation, and it might be, third fiddle in this offense.
Unfortunately, I think that Xavier Worthy might just be like some version of Marvin Mims, maybe a little better, because obviously Mims hasn't done a whole lot, but neither has Worthy. Honestly, he's just had a few big games. The thing is, he's supposed to be this deep threat that opens up the Chiefs' offense, but the problem is that Patrick Mahomes can't throw deep. Nobody's really talking about this, but over the last 2 years, Mahomes has just not been good throwing deep.
That's right. Yeah, it's been tough. And you can kind of see that when you watch him play, too. It obviously says it in the metrics, but yeah, good call. I think this is a shocking one. A lot of people, I think, in the chat would have assumed immediately, oh, this is easy, this is Worthy, this is the algorithm, this is the basic equation of rebuild. Not now. So why you tune into the game plan, get a little edge on your jabroni league mates. Should I keep Genty or trade if I can? In redraft, I am absolutely looking to trade.
Yes.
Dynasty, maybe not so. So talk to me about Ashton Genty.
Yeah, I think you're probably right on that. In seasonal, I am in full panic mode on Ashton Genty, just because of the schedule, because of the offensive line. It's nothing about him as a player. I still think he's awesome, but okay, this is a schedule coming up. Cleveland, then he gets the Chargers. That could be okay. Then Denver, Philly, Houston. That is absolutely brutal.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm in full sell at this point. In Dynasty, the opinion on him has probably gone a little too far. He's probably more of a hold for me.
Yeah, I feel like you're not cashing in on a Genty the way you would expect. He's been running back 16 on a points per game basis, but that's a disappointment. That's a massive disappointment. Yeah. So I think if I could take Genty and for somehow the guy who has Jonathan Taylor isn't winning in your league, would I trade a Genty? Like, that is where I would be aiming my bullet if I had a Genty. But I don't think you're getting that. I don't think you're at those tables. No. I don't think you're at the big boy table for a Genty right now. So, yeah, he might just be a hold in Dynasty, but in redraft, I think there's plenty of perceived lesser than players that you could jump into and have better results for the rest of the season.
Mm-hmm.
Start 2. He needs 2 wide receivers and 1 flex. Jefferson, Pickens, Odunze, Worthy, Michael Wilson. Also has Bucky Irving if he plays. So get start 2. So
start 2 wide receivers and a flex. Okay. Yeah. So let's immediately take Worthy out of the equation here.
Yep.
I think if Bucky plays, you have to start him. And oh man, this is tough. But I think it's just a start your stud situation with Jefferson, Pickens, and Bucky. That's kind of what I'm leaning towards.
Yeah, I think that's okay. I think if let's just say for the exercise,
I do like the Rome this week though.
My question to you is going to be, if Bucky doesn't play, Jefferson, Pickens, and are you choosing Odunze or Michael Wilson in a great matchup home against the Jaguars?
I love the matchup for Odunze too this week, so I'm going to go with him.
Yeah, I think at this point, don't get too cute.
That Pittsburgh pass defense is actually the most advantageous matchup for receivers.
Yeah. Yeah, at this point, like sometimes you just have to answer the question like this, and it's not always fun. If you play Odunze and Wilson goes off, you're pissed. If you play Wilson and Odunze goes off on your bench, you're sick to your stomach.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
if Kamara doesn't play, flex Addison or Gainwell. I know Kamara is, but hasn't he missed a lot of Wednesdays this season?
Yeah, he has. So I wouldn't be super worried about it. And I would start Kamara over both these guys, but Gainwell over Addison for me. Even if Warren plays, I don't care. I expect it to be more slanted towards Gainwell this week, even if Warren does play.
At what point does Gainwell just not be the hot hand? In 2 games in which Warren wasn't around to take carries, Gainwell's looked absolutely diabolical. At what point does the Steelers just go, we need this guy to play more? Warren, you've been good. We will find you the chances to touch the rock, but Gainwell's got to be on the field just a little bit more than he has, and he's been on the field a decent amount.
Mm-hmm.
On a competing team, I lost Wilson and London. So no Garrett Wilson, no Drake London. Who should I trade for? This is a dynasty home league. And I think the home league distinction is important because some fun can be had in home leagues. It's not so value for value. It's not so robotic. You can have a little fun. So who are some trade targets for a receiver-needy competing team?
Yeah, I mean, there was the 2 receivers that I brought up earlier on the show were Jefferson and Pearsall. I think both of those are on the table for sure. You never know what the price on Jefferson is going to be in a home league.
That's right.
It could be a huge overpay. It could be a huge underpay. You just don't know until you ask. So that's one those are 2 I would start with. Any others that come to mind for you? Oh, and Jalen Waddle, Debo Samuel.
Yep, we talked about Samuel, A.J. Brown. We talked about him on the show today. We talked about Chris Olave, his target share on the show.
Yeah.
Brian Thomas Jr. you might get for free $99 right now. There's plenty of wide receiver options. So we go if you haven't check if you weren't here for the beginning part of the show, do that. He's asking Waddle plus.
Waddle plus for what?
So I'm assuming selling one of the injured guys. I don't know if I want to sell those guys. I love those players, and even on a contender, I don't know if I want to sell those. I love those players.
I guess I would prefer if I was to trade one of them, I would prefer to trade Garrett Wilson just because of the Jets factor. Yep. You certainly have to get a plus on top of any of these guys that you get, except for Jefferson, I guess.
Yeah, but I think Waddle. If you're giving up Garrett Wilson, you can get Waddle plus. I think that's kind of a dub. Waddle's only 26. He's not that much older than Wilson, and the plus. I don't know if it would be significant. Like I don't think it's a massive plus, but could be one of these high upside running backs for the playoff run, something like that. So I think that's well within the risk here to do, especially in a home league. What about Chris Godwin, Evan? Would he be someone we should be targeting?
I'm going to be honest, man. I'm just out on Godwin for this season. It's sad. I really like the dude. I was rooting for him, but it's just taken him so long to get back. And he might be good at the end of the year, but my guess is that Egbuka just has his role now.
Egbuka, how can I say this politely? I love Chris Godwin, but there was never a moment in his career where he was better than Emeka Egbuka is right now.
Yeah.
So at this depleted stage of his career, what makes anyone think he's going to get on the field and take away touches? He'll get his touches. He will become part of the offense. But do you love starting Tez all the time? Do you love Sterling Shepard? Were we in love with Mike Evans when he was on the field earlier this season? This is the Egbuka team. Right. This is the Egbuka wide receiver room, and it trickles down from there. It hasn't been the passing offense that we were expecting. And with this injury, fibula, it's like that's like a car accident injury, right? The broken. It's just so.
I'm interested in him for dynasty potentially, depending on the price, of course. But for this season, I just don't really see any upside, unfortunately.
He's not like 30. He's 27. But with these injuries, I don't know.
It's rough. It's rough.
It's rough out here. But for this season, no. I'm not getting cute with Godwin. Where do we rank Rome Odunze rest of season? Should I be worried? He's been a bit of a boomer bust guy week to week.
He has. My recommendation would be to not overreact and just kind of go with the flow. Start your studs every week. And I expect this offense to continue to grow throughout the year. Currently have him ranked at wide receiver 18, so I'm not panicking over here. Right behind Jameson Williams, right ahead of Devontae Smith.
Where we got here? Okay, next one. Should I trade Hurts and Pitts for Henderson and Warren? He has Drizzy, Drake, May.
Okay, so we think this is redraft.
This has to be redraft, and I almost want to say it has to be. This is a no-doubter, right?
yeah, this doesn't make any sense.
This
Obviously,
is almost like
maybe
the
it's
dream.
Jalen Warren. I mean, I just assumed it was Tyler because you have
I
Pitts on the
assume,
other side.
but isn't it a smash either way?
Yeah, no, it's an
If
easy
you have
smash.
May and you could trade Hurts and Pitts for Henderson, just getting Henderson is a smash in redraft.
Yeah, unless this is a super flex, then I guess it's interesting.
Right, but I don't think it could be super flex because May and Hurts is the killer combo. If
Right.
there would
Yeah,
be a
you
third
wouldn't.
quarterback
Yeah.
mentioned if there was surplus, right? So I'm
If
assuming
it,
one QB. Even
I
in
don't know.
Dynasty, even in Dynasty, one QB, I'm making this trade, no doubt about it. Whether it's Tyler Warren
Absolutely,
or Jalen Warren,
absolutely. So I think
Drake
we
May's
can
him.
say pretty simple based on the format. If this is one QB, you make this trade every time. If it's super flex, then you just hold the 2 stud QBs.
Yeah. I'm not trading. You don't trade a QB like Jalen Hurts
Yeah.
in Superflex. You just don't. Drop Kyle Monangai for Sean Tucker redraft.
Ooh, that's a tough
This
one.
is.
That's a really tough
Can
one.
you
2
have
awesome
both?
backups. Yeah.
Can you keep them both?
Yeah, 2 of my favorite backups for sure. Oh, I would lean slightly towards Sean Tucker at this point if I had to, and especially if I potentially needed a starter in the next 2 weeks.
Yeah, I think I would go Tucker because there's also the possibility of re-injury for Bucky Irving, who's obviously it's taken longer than expected to return, so it's something ain't right. But the case for Monangai is he's still scoring touchdowns even with Swift back, so he might have small standalone value. But I just think at this point, Tucker will be this year's league winner if something keeps Bucky Irving off the field.
Yeah, also has the way better schedule too.
Great call, great schedule there. Trade Barkley and Debo for Chase Brown and Rashee Rice. This is what I'm talking about.
Ooh, that's a fun trade right there. Let's go. Pulling out the nuts. Yeah, I would do this.
Yeah, I'm doing this.
I view Chase Brown and Saquon as pretty similar rest of season, especially after the Lane Johnson injury. And then you clearly get the upgrade from Debo to Rice.
We talked about Debo being a sneaky good player, a sneaky good buy. There ain't nothing sneaky about Rashee Rice. He's just good.
Yep.
He's just an upgrade. And I don't think, if you ask me right now, Evan, I bet you $5 that Barkley scores more fantasy points than Chase Brown. I don't know if I'd feel confident in that. I think that Chase Brown has every possibility of being a better fantasy player than Barkley rest of the season. That schedule for the Bengals is nice. And Joe Burrow, folks, practiced in full today. He will be back within the next few weeks, which, again, just keeps this offense going. The defense can't stop anybody. So I want Chase Brown. I want Rashee Rice. And I don't even think it's close.
I got Chase Brown ranked ahead of Saquon rest of the season.
There it is. It is done, sealed, and delivered. Who would you keep rest of season, Brock Purdy or Daniel Jones?
Look, I do admire the 49ers upside for sure rest of season, but it doesn't compare to the upside that we've already seen with Daniel Jones. So I'm going Danny Dimes.
And I know the narrative in football, whether it be fantasy or just IRL football, Daniel Jones turning back into a pumpkin. The schedule is going to I think the schedule is going to allow him to keep playing well.
Mm-hmm.
Easy schedule.
Yep.
He doesn't
Great
really have a
schedule.
tough schedule rest of season, so I think it's top 8 for quarterbacks rest of season. So I'm gonna stick with Daniel Jones. I have Burrow, Hampton, Benson, Rome, Ladd on my bench. Also, I have B-Rob. Should I drop any of those for Algier in redraft?
Good problem to have right there. Jeez.
Yes, baby.
Ladd on the bench, Rome on the bench. Also have B-Rob. I would hold pretty much all these guys over Algier. I guess the one interesting one to me is Joe Burrow, just based on who his other quarterback is. But I guess like Brian Robinson, I would still have him over Algier, but it is very close. What do you think?
No, that's Bijan. I think he has Bijan. So should he handcuff Bijan with the high upside running back?
Okay, that makes more sense. No, I wouldn't.
Same.
Unless you like can afford to drop somebody like Burrow, which you probably can't.
Yeah, and at this point, we're looking at we talked about high upside running backs. Benson, Hampton being in free agency would have been they'd be at the top of the list.
This is where we trade away Hampton. We already have
This is
Benson. We have Benson coming off IR.
yep.
We get to add Algier. Boom.
I like that. I like that move. Drop Baker for Burrow.
I actually have them back to back in the seasonal rankings right now. It depends on your situation. Obviously, if you need a starter, you want the one that's actually starting right now.
Yeah.
But if you're just stashing a quarterback, yeah, I prefer Burrow.
I think Burrow. Something isn't right about Baker. I don't know if we see like
Yeah.
the 30-point Baker, the gunslinger Baker at many points throughout the season, especially with that running schedule. I think that they try to establish the run a little bit more, slow things down,
Yeah, it seems like he's
keep
pretty
these guys
beat up.
healthy.
There's been a lot of
Yes,
O-line injuries, a lot of receiver injuries too.
Oh yeah, they've had a rough go at it. They need to
Yeah.
kind of stabilize things and maybe get back to basics. So I think I would much rather have Burrow too. So we're setting a lineup here. We got wide receiver 2 and 3 in a flex spot. So we got Adams at wide receiver 1, Taylor and Henderson at wide receiver 1 and 2,
Hell yeah.
Tez Johnson, PJ Washington, Jordan Addison, Jacoby Myers, and then running back. So we Charbonnet, Wilson, Debo. So we got 2 receivers and a flex here.
Okay, 2 receivers. Interesting. I'm taking Parker Washington out of the equation. I just that last week really turned me off. I like Jacoby better than him. So let's go. I'm gonna go Tez Johnson, Jacoby Myers as receivers. I don't want the wide receiver 2 in a JJ McCarthy offense at this point. Super low point total in that game as well. And then we're looking at flex spot. So Charbonnet, Emmanuel Wilson, or Josh Jacobs. If Josh Jacobs plays, you start Jacobs. If he doesn't play,
Yep.
you start Wilson.
Completely agree. My league starts 3 wide receivers. He has JSM, Lamb, Franklin, QJ, Godwin, and Reed on the IR. I need to drop either QJ or Godwin to pick up another wide receiver for this week. Am I crazy to say I'd rather keep Godwin over QJ?
I don't think you're crazy, although I would drop Godwin. But I am very out on QJ rest of season for sure. I just don't think it really makes. I don't see how they get the ball to him with no O line throwing it downfield like that. So I would look to trade QJ, but drop Godwin.
Yeah, I don't care if you have to drop either one. QJ's been
That's
bad. We
fair.
talked about the
Yeah.
tough schedule, and he's not playing this week. He's on bye, so I'm okay dropping either one, to be quite honest. Do we prefer Chris Rodriguez or Tajay Spears for the playoffs?
That's an interesting one. I want to look at the schedule on that. Obviously, Tajay Spears is the more
Titans have a
explosive
tough
player.
one. They have a tough play. They have a tough schedule, I believe. The
Yeah,
Titans do.
yeah. So here are the schedules. Titans get the Niners, Chiefs, and Saints, which is okay. That's
Yeah.
fine. But the Commanders have the much better schedule. They have the Giants, which is awesome, Philly, which is horrible, but then Dallas, which is also awesome. So I would go with Rodriguez, I think.
Start 2: Woody Marks, Henderson, Ramondre, or Singletary.
This is complicated because of the 2 Patriots. I'm taking Singletary out of the equation for sure.
Me too.
Let's see where I have Woody this week. Okay, I actually have him the highest right now because he has a great matchup versus Buffalo. So I would start Woody and Trevion.
Same. I have Bowers, Ferguson, and Fannin. No one trades in my league. Would you drop Fannin or Pollard for Chris Rodriguez? His other running backs are Ginty and Judkins.
Yeah, so I assume this is redraft, especially with the no one trades part. That tends to be a redraft thing.
Usually,
in a redraft league, if you have 3 good tight ends, you got to drop one of them, even if it sucks, and another dude in your league is going to get one. Personally, I would drop Ferguson, I think, over Fannin. Ferguson just hasn't really done anything since CeeDee Lamb came back.
Yeah,
Although
I'm definitely.
Pollard is an easy drop too, so it's tough.
See, I think Pollard. You want Pollard on the field. Pollard's still showing a little bit in the tank, and we just talked about Spears not having a terrible schedule.
Yeah.
I think I'd much rather drop one of these tight ends than Pollard. But I'm not.
Fair.
I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm not dying on the Tony Pollard hill. I just think in a redraft sense, there's no need for 3 tight ends. You don't need 3. So I'm dropping either Ferguson or Fannin. Pick your choice to make the drop, Millie. I have Dicker on bye this week. Is he worth keeping on the bench? Myers or Fairbairn for the week, or should I drop one of them and start someone rest of season? So basically, kicker question: do you want to have 2 kickers in to stash Dicker, or are you okay dropping? What do you think here?
Take a guess.
Drop them.
Yeah. I actually had this exact dilemma in a league this week where I had Dicker, I dropped him and picked up Fairbairn. That's how I play it. I'm not carrying 2 kickers ever, no matter what.
Yeah. Also, Myers has been dirt nasty for the Seahawks
Yes.
lately. I think he's just fine. I think you just exit Dicker, get on Myers, and then get on Myers. No nitty, but yeah,
at the end of the day, when you look at the kicker game logs, you'll start to think that it's predictable because it looks like this guy's consistent. He's getting me 10 points every week. It's not though. As soon as you think it's consistent, they're going to pull the rug out from under you. So just don't worry about it.
Yeah, I mean, you think about it here. 4 extra points and a missed 50-yarder is 3 points.
Yep.
And that wouldn't even be considered a terrible game for a kicker in an NFL sense, but it's catastrophic for fantasy. Don't carry 2. I don't think it's that particular. I think Myers and Fairbairn are perfectly fine rest of season. So I think you just drop Dicker for my preference would be Meyer. I don't like kickers who have injuries, so
Sure.
I'd rather have Myers. But you can't go wrong with either one. Because again, we talked about the defense for Houston. They got 2 home games in the playoffs, so 2 indoor games locked and loaded. And I think they play the Chargers in Week 17, so that's 3 indoor games. So Myers, Fairbairn, pick your poison.
Yeah, I like Fairbairn just because of his name. If you haven't Googled his full name, it is the longest name you will ever see. It is literally like 50 syllables long. So that's the one reason I would take Kaimi Fairbairn.
Let's go. Tet McMillan or Rome Odunze?
Yeah, for this week, I talked about how much I love Rome this week, but I have Tet ranked higher. Obviously, he crushed last week, and this week he gets another great matchup against San Fran.
My team is Jalen C. Brown.
That probably hurts.
Yeah. That's got to be Hurts. Yeah, I think he just won an extra L. Chris Brown, Travion Henderson, Jamar Chase, Lamb, Marv, J-Mo, Debo. Well, yeah, even a good question. He was offered Pittman and Bowers for CD. 5 and 6, middle of the pack, need a win to get to the offs. What are we doing?
Okay. Is this a redraft team? What? Did you just nail every single pick? What is?
Yeah.
How do you have Jamar?
It's a 10-man league, so it's probably a shallow league. Trades. I mean, trades going to happen.
Yeah, I guess trades. But holy shit, what's going on here? Okay, sorry.
So give the answer. Give it a redraft answer. Give a dynasty answer.
Oh yeah, fair enough. I think that I'll probably just take CD Lamb in both situations. I just want the wide receiver hammer. That's how I play. A redraft or dynasty.
Completely agree. 10-team league.
You already have Gatson,
don't worry.
too.
You have Gatson. The Bowers difference isn't as big of a difference in a 10-man league, but the Lamb, Jamar Chase hammer is what dreams are made of. And I know 5 and 6, but we're gonna turn shit around. It's redraft. I bet. So now we know exactly what it is. I'm still sticking with Lamb here. I'm gonna stick with Lamb.
Yeah,
trying to win in the margin somewhere else.
This team is 5 and 6. Obviously, he's missing like an elite running back one, but I think you're gonna get there, and I think you're gonna crush.
Injuries are killing me, and I need a wide receiver. Would you trade Bijan for Judkins and CD?
Ooh, I like that. I would do that if you just need a little depth. I like it.
I think that's a good trade. I think that's a good trade. Bijan's awesome, but Judkins is still getting all the touches. He looks good. And Lamb, they're definitely good. Some real big weeks ahead for CeeDee Lamb. Dynasty question: Zach Wilson resurrects his career with what team? Ken Walker signs with who?
Dynasty question: Zach Wilson. First time those 4 words have been together in quite a while. I'm just going to ignore that part, I think. Ken Walker, man, there are a lot of interesting teams for him. Obviously, the number 1 would be the Jets. Cowboys would be up, or not the Jets, the Chiefs. That's what I meant to say.
Jets. What? Huh?
I was thinking about Breece Hall, who might be a free agent too.
Right.
Cowboys, there's a lot of situations. We don't have to go through them right now, though.
Yeah, there's definitely some good situations. There's also teams out there that I think could have some low-key openings. Like people weren't going nuts for Josh Jacobs when he went to the Packers, right? We were kind of like, oh, how do they do things? And he's been an absolute smasher. So there'll be some guys coming out of the weeds. And Zach Wilson resurrects his career. I mean, if he goes to the Vikings, isn't that the only way you can do that nowadays, right?
Ooh, that's a great shout, actually. The Vikings really need a running back.
I mean, wouldn't that be the most hated QB room from the outside of all time? J.J. McCarthy and Zach Wilson. Just two bad guys from a 1980s teen movie.
Yeah. No, that's really good. I was thinking Kenneth Walker to the Vikings because they need a running back.
Oh, that could work too. That'd be great too. That would be great too. John, and also regarding the last conversation, this 5 and 6 juggernaut has Josh Allen. He put so Jalen is the nickname. Love the nickname, by the way. Gonna definitely use that. I kind of went right over my head, but Jalen, what a team! Holy shit! I can't believe that team's 5 and 6.
This is a redraft league. He's got Josh Allen, CeeDee Lamb, Jamar Chase. That's crazy.
My friend, we've done it. We've answered all the questions in the chat. Guys, thank you so much for hanging out with us every Wednesday night, the game plan. I know next week's Thanksgiving. As of right now, we will be going as scheduled. Wednesday night, 8 p.m. next week. We'll get you ready. Maybe we'll talk about some players we're thankful for, Evan. We'll do some Thanksgiving-themed show. But again, thank you so much for hanging out with us. Make sure you are subscribed to the Player Profile YouTube channel. Like this video. Leave a comment. Who are some of your favorite trade targets for the fantasy football playoffs? Evan, let the people know where they can find you.
You can find me on X at Evan Ringler FF. Besides that, you can find me on this YouTube channel. On Wednesdays and Fridays, and then playerprofiler.com. Also, just want to say thanks to the people out there watching. This show is so much fun to do. I know Matty agrees, but this is just one of my favorite times of the week for sure.
Yeah, and it's like we do the show, which is awesome, and then we get to answer the chat, which is even better somehow.
Yeah,
so I love doing the show.
That's the most fun part.
The chat up. It's awesome, and you guys make it all happen. But you can find me trying to get my Twitter handle back on X. So if you have a contact there, please let me know. I'm still fighting the good fight. But there has been some success out there with others that had this problem. So cross your fingers, hold out hope for your boy. But playerprofile.com, got a lot of NFL draft stuff coming. My Net Mock 3.0 is almost coming out. Big Board 1.0 is on its way. We got a lot of NFL draft stuff. We're going to kick that noise up. Going to turn that to 11 here soon enough. So you can find me there at playerprofiler.com. Ladies and gentlemen, keep game planning, get out there, get those wins, and I will see you next week for week 13.
Hey, I want to thank you for being part of this broadcast. If you have any thoughts on it, leave a comment. If you enjoyed it, make sure you leave a like. And if you want to see more shows on the Player Profiler channel, subscribe to it. That's how we know you want more.